This is the 2019 Mazda CX-5. It's the Signature edition, so it's pretty much got all the bells and whistles on it. It's got leather seats, heated and cooled seats. It has a lot of cool features, which we'll get to in a little bit. But the first thing I want to talk about is the engine. It's got a 2.5 liter turbocharged engine, making 250 horsepower when you use 93 octane, and making 310 foot-pounds of torque. And that 310 foot-pounds of torque translates into smiles. This car is a lot of fun to drive. Even just in town, it's light and nimble. It feels light and nimble. It's got so much torque. This all-wheel drive transmission, you can feel that it's front-wheel drive biased because there is a little bit of torque steer that comes with it, which is crazy. I love the fact that Mazda really decided to keep the fact that this car is going to be fun. They're sticking with their, remember that slogan? I don't know if they still even use it, but the zoom zoom. This car's got plenty of zoom zoom for being a little crossover SUV. It's a ton of fun to drive. There are a few things, however, though, that make me wonder what happened. Like in 2016, they changed the model into 2017, and I think the meeting went something like this.
So the next generation of the Mazda CX-5, it needs to be fast, it needs to be fun. We need to have big wheels, nice tires.
He said fun.
Display,
We're finally going to make a hot hatch again.
We don't want to look like we don't care about the interior. And I want
Sweet. We don't care about the interior. This is going to be fun.
Here's your CX-5.
This is a hot hatch.
I know.
I asked for a CUV.
You said fun.
You got 2 days. Make it taller.
I don't know if that's how it went down, but it feels like this car was meant to be a hot hatch. It was meant to be fun. It was meant to be a competitor to some of the funnest cars out there to drive right now as hot hatches. But then it got kind of ruined by becoming a CUV. And I only say ruined as in the hot hatch was ruined, but it made this a ton of fun. There are a few complaints I have with the interior. This center console and the buttons down here, they just don't flow very well, and it kind of feels like an afterthought. And the rear view camera, it looks like a camera from a Razr flip phone. I don't know what happened with that. It feels like they kind of spent a lot of money on other areas and kind of went a little bit cheap on the camera equipment for the backup camera, the front camera, and the 360 cameras. It has all those things. They all work fine, but the resolution is pretty terrible. It just doesn't seem to do what you want it. It just doesn't look good. It has a bad look to it. I think part of the problem is they're stretching that field of view out so wide that it kind of ruins the resolution of the picture. The only thing that I do notice with that comes in really handy is when you're backing out of your driveway and there is traffic coming, it's easy to actually spot something there. You can't really tell what it is, but you know something's there, and this thing has the alert system too. It'll alert you that someone is coming. I was backing out of my driveway at night. There was actually someone riding their bike in my neighborhood at night, and this detected them. That saved them getting hurt. I don't know if it would save their lives. It would have just been a little hit, but it definitely saved somebody getting hurt in my neighborhood, which is really, really cool. So Mazda's done a good job at making a lot of nice features available on this car. It has adaptive cruise. It works in stop-and-go traffic, which I love that. It has the lane assist, which actually, when working, works really, really well. When it adjusts you for going out of the lane, it's very subtle. It's very, it doesn't surprise you. A little light blinks in the heads-up display, letting you know that you're leaving the lane. It works really well, and it makes, it's not overly intrusive, which is really nice. It feels more like an assistance than a hindrance, if you will. I've driven other vehicles that it just bounces off the lanes and it feels a little too aggressive. So at first, when I looked in the back seat, I was like, that looks like a very tight and small back seat. But when you get in, you actually sit pretty comfortably, and there's plenty of leg room, because this seat is actually kind of pulled back a little bit for me, because I was trying to do some camera work in there. So someone taller than me could actually sit up here and I would be comfortable. So looks can be deceiving with the size of this back seat. And there's actually plenty of room in the back too. We have a table and a couple chairs in here from our goofy little skit of Mazda. It's very practical, very easy to use, simple one-touch, liftgate works. A very, very practical little car. Okay, so I want to demonstrate how the heads-up display works. We're going to cross this sign. It should read it, show that it's 45 miles an hour. You can also see that the lane assist there it came on, and when you kind of there we go, when you get out of sorts with it, these lines aren't very consistent, so it's struggling to kind of keep up with it. But there we go. When you drift, there it shows, there's the alert for when you're losing the lane. When it recognizes the stop sign, it will actually show it on the display. So here we come, coming up to a stop sign, which, now granted, it's a little silly, but it's a cool little feature. I think it's neat. So even in your heads-up display, it shows when you have someone in your blind spot, which is pretty cool. It took me a minute to figure out what the symbol was, but there it is on the left there. It knows that truck is next to me. It's pretty cool. Once you learn and kind of figure out what the symbols mean, it's actually a really helpful system. Okay, so I'm going to try to demonstrate how these headlights move when you turn. I'm using these bushes kind of as a reference, so keep an eye on the headlights in the bushes, and when I come up, when I turn the wheel this way, that right headlight swings out, swings in, left one swings out, then straightens back out. Very, very cool feature. It's funny, the last few cars I've driven haven't made me want to come down to my windy road, and I'm doing that today in this because I feel like this car deserves it, which is crazy because it is a SUV or crossover SUV, CUV, whatever you want to call it. But it's definitely feels fun enough to bring down this road and see how it does, which it's hilarious. I love the fact that the shifter, when you use the manual mode for the shifter, it's right. Back is up and forward is downshift, which is how it should be. And that just shows Mazda knows what the heck they're doing when they're making a fun vehicle. And I wish they would make more fun cars, because this is this is so much fun for I'm already catching traffic. But I didn't feel like I was in an SUV there. I felt like I was in a hot hatch with a little more body roll, which is wild. I'm kind of torn about how I feel about this car. For what it is, I love it. I think they've made something that most car companies would not make fun to drive a ton of fun to drive. And they've kind of fallen short on some of just the interior design pieces, because I feel like it was kind of an afterthought. Because they were so busy making this car drive so fun. They were busy making the heads-up display so nice. They were busy focusing on everything else. It's pretty amazing how well Mazda has kept this car so fun to drive. I mean, even in these tight, twisty roads, it is so alive. It's just like, it rolls a bit, but that turbo and it's just so quick through the corners. It's so much fun to drive, and it's a crossover. Mazda has done such a good job at making this car fun. I think it shows that they really realize sadly what Americans want. They want an SUV that sits high. They want all-wheel drive. They want it to feel safe, because I think Americans are kind of stuck in this trap that they only feel safe if they're in like an SUV, which is kind of sad. And some would argue that you're probably safer in a little car that can handle really well, is nimble, and can avoid accidents. So this kind of does both. So, I mean, it's just so much fun to drive. Eli, our camera guy and podcast host, co-host, just asked me would I take this or the Tiguan, and I love the Tiguan. I love the technology in the Tiguan. There's so many smart features in the Tiguan, but I would take this. I would take this because it is so much fun to drive, and it does a lot. It has a lot of really nice features. It has the heads-up display. It has adaptive cruise control. It has lane assist. It has a lot of nice features to it. I don't think they're as well executed as far as looks as the Tiguan, but there's still a lot of cool features. But where this just completely obliterates the Tiguan is how it drives. The 310 foot-pounds of torque coming from this little 2.5 liter engine makes this car feel so alive, makes it feel so much fun to drive, and that for me just takes the cake. It's just a fun place to be, and that's what I love about this car. So overall, what do I think? I really like this car. If I was shopping for a small SUV or CUV, whatever you want to call it, this would probably be the one I would take, because it's so fun to drive. It's got so much pep. The 310 foot-pounds of torque just I can't say it enough. It makes this car come to life. It makes it fun. It makes it to where you actually enjoy spirited driving in it, which is incredible for a little 4-cylinder crossover SUV. The only little complaints I have is I feel like this and this right here were kind of afterthoughts. It really feels like they just took an iPad and went, that'll do. Where are we going to put the buttons? I don't know why here wouldn't work. There might be some sort of design, something here to where they couldn't put these buttons here, but they're a little awkward to reach. So there's a little bit with the fit and finish that I'm not 100% satisfied with. But the way the vehicle drives outshines all of that so much that I love this thing. I could definitely see one of these in my future. And before driving this, I thought the Tiguan was next in line, but I love how this car drives. It does good enough on fuel economy for a little SUV. The engine does awesomely. Even though I don't really care for this, it does some cool things where it'll tell you the next road that's coming up, even if you don't have the navigation up. The adaptive cruise control works really well, really smoothly. The lane assist works really well. It has active blind spot monitoring where it'll actually pop up in your heads-up display with like a little image letting you know there's another car beside you. And there's a lot of neat little features in this car that overshine the kind of afterthought feel of just this right here. This is the only spot that feels kind of like they didn't put much effort into it. Everything else is awesome. It drives really good. It handles really well. The gauge cluster, I actually like how it looks. It's just, I feel like I'm constantly giving rave reviews, but it seems like every time I drive something different, it's good in its own way. Like this is such a fun little SUV. It just works. It works so well. And I want to thank Mazda for sending me this vehicle. I've enjoyed it the past few days that I've had it. It's really proven to be a fun little car and a practical little vehicle as well. So thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, and please don't forget to check out our podcast, where we have a podcast that we typically post on Tuesdays. We post in our Carguments Instagram page to try to get some interaction with the podcast. And if you like this video, if you found it a little humorous too, please give us a like. And we're also on Roku on the Auto Show, and that's on Roku and your Amazon streaming device. So thanks again for watching. I hope you guys have an awesome day. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoy actually driving this car.